The following is a summary of the Sicha of Shabbos Parshas Terumah Tov Shin Nun Beis. Poischin bebracha. We'll open up with a bracha, especially Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. As the month of Adar comes in, we increase in matters of joy, and it's a month in which Bori Mazole, its mazel is healthy and strong, and therefore it's an extremely auspicious time for blessings. The Gemara in Tainis, Daf Chof Tes Amud Aleph, page 29a, states the following: Keshem shemishenichnas av mematin besimcha. Just as when the month of Menachem Av arrives, we decrease in matters of joy. Kach mishenichnas Adar marbim besimcha. So too, when the month of Adar comes, we increase in matters of joy. Therefore, the Gemara says somebody who has a din with a Gentile should arrange to have it in the month of Adar because it has a strong mazel. Now, what actually is this comparison between the month of Av and the month of Adar? That the Gemara says, just like we decrease in Simcha in the month of Av, so too we should increase in Simcha in the month of Adar. Surely by mentioning Av, we actually deflate somewhat the Simcha. The answer is that the reason why we decrease the Simcha in Av is in order to transform it and to illuminate the darkness of Av, which is achieved through the increase in joy in the month of Adar. In other words, we take Av and we change it around. As it says in Tanya that there are two types of food, the sweet food and then the sour food, but both of them have a nachas to Hashem. There is the avodah of Adar, and then there's the avodah of taking Av and transforming it. And that's why the din of Marbim B'Simcha is actually brought in Masechta Tainis. So from this, we understand that there's a bracha in this month to transform everything which is the opposite of blessing to blessing and simcha. Especially the simcha ikris, the principal simcha, that of the coming of Mashiach, when it says, then our mouths will be full of joy, and then there will be the complete transformation. The beginning of the month of Adar is in the Parsha of Terumah. What is the connection between the Parsha of Terumah and the month of Adar? Also, it's a leap year this year. And also, Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon is on Tuesday and Wednesday. What is the connection of all these things? We'll be able to understand it by having a look at something at the beginning of our Parsha. It says in the beginning of Parshas Terumah that the Nidvas HaMishkan, the donations of the Mishkan, should be first from Zohav, Kesef, Unacheshes. Why does it begin with Zohav, gold? In fact, if the donation to the Mishkan was an obligation on every single person, then it should have been first mentioned something which everybody has. Not everybody has gold. Most people have bronze, copper, then some more people have silver, and then less people have gold. So why was Zohav mentioned first if it's something that only the wealthy people have? And in fact, we see in the later gifts which were given to the Mishkan, first of all, the Torah tells us about the gold, silver, and copper, which was by the majority of Yidden. Thereafter, it tells us about the gifts of purple wool and Telashoni and Sheish and Izim and Oiris Elim, Odom and Choshim, which were only by those who had those items. And thereafter it tells us about the onyx stones, the Avnei Shoim, which only the Nesiim have. So we see that in terms of how the Torah details it, it goes minakal elakoved, from the lighter and more plentiful to that which is more expensive and less found. And if that's the case, why does the Torah ask immediately for Zahav, for gold? Now, although when the Yidden came out of Mitzrayim, they actually came out with a tremendous amount of gold, but most probably, even in Mitzrayim itself, there was more silver than there was gold. And furthermore, for the needs of the Mishkan, more silver was needed than gold, as the Ramban explains. And if that's the case, why does the Torah ask first for gold? And we can't say that the Torah is beginning with the most important item, because actually the Avnei Shoim, the onyx stones, were only mentioned last. And most importantly, it's not here what is most important, it's what is actually going to be needed for the Mishkan. So what is the lesson that we can learn from the fact that the Torah details first, the first item is the gold should be given? We'll be able to understand this by asking a general question about the construction of the Mishkan. The tzivui, the command to build the Mishkan, was for everybody, men, women, and children. Now, what was the Mishkan? The Mishkan was a house in which the Shekhinah, the divine presence, would dwell, a physical place where the divine would dwell. And even though it says that the heavens cannot contain you, but nevertheless Hashem says, I will speak to you and visit you from that place. So seemingly such an awesome spiritual center should be built by very, very spiritual people. And in fact, just like the construction itself was done by the architect Bezalel, and it was done exactly as Moshe Rabbeinu commanded, as everything he had seen on the mountain. If that's the case, then the Nidvas HaMishkan, the gifts to the Mishkan, should have also been given only by extremely spiritual individuals. From where did the simple Jews get the capability to be able to cause a resting of the Shekhinah in the physical items which they gave? And especially because the giving had to be given lishma, for the sake and correct intention. And that's not something which everybody can have good and correct intentions. The answer is as follows. The building of the Mishkan and the command to build the Mishkan was given after the giving of the Torah. At Matan Torah, uvonu v'acharta mikol am b'loshen. That was the moment that Hashem chose the Jewish nation, not just their souls, but their bodies. A soul in a body was chosen to be a mamlechas koyanim, a kingdom of priests. This was the moment that the divide, the gezerah, the decree that the uppers shouldn't go down to the lower and the lower shouldn't ascend to the upper was nullified. This was the moment of fusion of heaven and earth. This was the moment that upper and lower were joined together. So that even if a Jew was in a situation of chata, may have sinned, but nevertheless, internally, their pinta yid, their quintessence, always remained the same, wanting to do the will of Hashem. And therefore, even somebody who is serving shaloi lishma, Chazal say, mitoich shaloi lishma ba lishma, out of doing something not for the right reason, you'll come to do it for the right reason. But Chassidus explains that the toich, the very inner dimension of the shaloi lishma, is also lishma. And therefore we'll understand now how koyach was given for every single yid to build a physical place where Hashem would rest. Because after Matan Torah, permission was given, empowerment was given, so that we can make a dwelling for Hashem down here in this world. And now we'll understand why the Torah begins with gold. The giving of gold shows that the Yidden themselves were gold. After Matan Torah, they were wealthy. Essentially, they were considered as princes, as kings. Their being was gold star. Zohav can be the letters Zeh Hanoisein Bori. The one who gives is healthy. In other words, the idea of Zohav is the ultimate of wealth and health, both materially and spiritually. And Jews reach that level at the giving of the Torah. And that's why the command to build the Mishkan was after the giving of the Torah and through Yidden who were on that gold level. And in relation to what was needed in the Mishkan, true, more silver was needed, but in terms of who was giving it, that gold star level was, in fact, the Yidden. And that's why they had a tremendous amount of gold, silver, and copper at that time, because the material wealth actually came and was nishtalshal. It came down from the spiritual wealth which they had been given at Matan Torah. In fact, that's why in Parshas Vayakil, if you have a look, the donations of gold and silver are actually mentioned separately. So now we can understand the connection with the month of Adar. The Gemara says the month of Adar has bori mazole. Its mazel is healthy, it's strong. Now the Gemara elsewhere says that ein mazal Yisrael, that the Jews are not under the control of the mazolis of the constellations. Rashi explains why. Because through tefillah, through davening, and zuchus and merit, Yidden have the capability to change a mazel for the good, so that's why they're not determined by the mazolis. However, when we say bori mazole, that the month of Adar has a strong mazel, the indication is that even without davening and even without zuchus, the mazel itself of the month of Adar is strong. The answer is, it is true. Yidden are not under the determination of the mazolis. However, the novelty over here is, even when a soul comes down in a body and externally is similar to everybody else, it's still there in a situation of Ein Mazal Yisrael, which is why Yidden have a koyach through tefillah and zuchus to change a mazel. The chidush, the novelty of Chodesh Adar is that even if a Yid is down here and he has a court case with a non-Jew, bori mazale, the mazel itself of the month is strong. And as Chassidus explains, Ein Mazal Yisrael means that the ayin is the mazel of Yisrael. The true mazel of Yidden is ayin, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is noizel, from the word mazel, from the word noizel, it flows down to the month in which its mazel is strong, meaning that in this month, the inner desire of a Yid is to do what Hashem wants, and that is actually felt even by a non-Jew, and hence in a court case, the mazel of a Yid is strong then. We'll now understand the connection between the month of Adar and the Parsha of Terumah. The giving to the Mishkan, which took place after Matan Torah, and was something which was empowered by Matan Torah, that even when a Yid is down here, his metzius in the world is that of a gold level, and that of being bori, of being healthy. That gave the koyach that when the Mishkan was made, which was principally in the month of Adar, because it was consecrated towards the end of Adar and the beginning of Nisan, then that the whole creation of the Mishkan was in a month which has a very strong mazel. And that's connected with Marbin Besimcha. Because the greatest simcha is that a Yid knows that whenever situation they may be, even if they're a very low situation, in a world of concealment, they are still connected with Hashem. That's the greatest simcha. That even a soul in a body, they need to know that they're Ben Yochid. They are the son of Melech Malcham Lochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu of Hashem, and that they are on a gold standard. Even in this world, where in fact property and possessions mean things in this world, a Yid is an Oshir, a wealthy person, both spiritually and material as well. In order to understand this connection between the Mematin B'Simcha of Av and the Marbim B'Simcha of Adar, that even when a person is on the Chayshech, the darkness, and the downside, Adar has the ability to transform it. When we're misboinin, when we think about this point, it brings a Yid that they have the power and the capability to transform even the lowest place, the darkness, to a situation of gesund, a situation which is healthy and which is gold. That brings a Yid tremendous simcha, and it's a simcha which permeates their entire being. And when a Yid is besimcha, that has a tremendous effect on everything they do and on everybody else that they come into contact with. In other words, in addition to the fact that simcha brings a person to Olam Haba, as Chazal say about, there were two people who made jokes and the Gemara says, oh, they are B'nai Olam Haba. In addition to that, the tremendous simcha brings a person to not just Olam Haba, but to true life in Olam Hazeh, in this world. That their life in this world is a true life, a happy life, and a successful life. And this all comes in focus when Rosh Chodesh Adar is on Tuesday and Wednesday, on the days of Gimel and Daled. The Gemara in Shabbos Daf Kuf Daled Amud Aleph says Gimel Daled in the Seder of the Aleph base, Gemoil Dalim. Gemoil Dalim means that he gives poor people, which means that even in a situation of Dalim, of poverty, one brings Gimel, one brings Hashpa, influence from above, and that comes as Gimel and Daled are connected together, the word God, whose mazel was strong. And especially as Yidden, even they are in a situation of Dalim, that actually also shows some tremendous advantage which Yidden had. Because if you have a look, the Gemara says Gemoil Dalim. Now there are many words for poor people. One of them is Rosh, Reshin. So it could have said Gemoil Roshim. Why does it say Gemoil Dalim? Although it's explaining the Seder of the Aleph base. But there is a difference between a Daled and a Resh. Both the letters Daled and Resh are connected with being impoverished. But nevertheless, Resh is Daled Dalus. It's really, really poor. And Daled is less so. Why? The answer is because on the back of the Daled, there is a Nakuda. There's a point. And that point is the point of Bittul. That is a point, the Nakudas HaBittul, which connects the Gimel with the Daled, the Gemoil, the Mashpia, with the Daled, with the Mekabel, with Yesod, with Malchus. And that comes from the Nakudas Hayadus, which is connected to the Daled. So, in Avodah, this means that whatever situation a Yid may be on, even if they be on a situation of Dal, they still have this connection with Hashem, and therefore they are able to bring down the Hashpah from Hashem to where they are. In fact, before Matan Torah, Yidden were in a situation of a ger coming to Matan Torah and being converted. Ger is Gemoil Roshim. However, after Matan Torah, it's Gemoil Dalim. The lesson that we can learn from all the above is that every Yid is on the gold standard. And Bepashtus, every single Yid should have ashirus, gold, should be rich, both begashmis and beruchnias and bepashtus. And not only that they should be like that, but they are bepoil already like that. And if it's not seen literally, it's because it needs to be revealed through avodah. And when a person transforms the darkness, there's additional light and additional blessing. And certainly when we're in the last generation of Golus, and all we need to do is to receive Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'Poel, certainly HaKadosh Baruch Hu blesses every individual with ashirus, with gold, begashmius, uveruchnius, as it was when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. As Chazal say, that every single Yid had 90 donkeys laden with gold and silver, etc. So the lesson that we can learn from this is that every single person should try to be wealthy. And that starts from being wealthy in ruchnias. Ein osher ela badas. When we talk about real wealth, it's in knowledge. A person should be wealthy in Torah and mitzvahs, and also in gashmias. A person should be materially wealthy in order to keep Torah and mitzvahs with menuchas hanefesh, to give more tzedakah, to keep mitzvahs beautifully, and to use the wealth to build their personal mikdash, sanctuary, and give tzedakah also to build bati knesias and bati midrashas. And the ikar is to build the bayis hashlishi, the third Beis Hamikdash, which after all the pirushim in v'asu mikdash, the main pirush is ein mikra yotzei midei pshuti, is to build the third Beis Hamikdash. As the Rambam says, that when Mashiach will come, Yivna HaMikdash Memekoimai, he will build the Beis Hamikdash in his place, and that will be together with every single Yid. And certainly in our generation, when we actually train even small children to give tzedakah, and we give them their own money so that they should give tzedakah. So, in addition to the fact that Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha in general, and now we need to be marbin b'simcha, and we need to use the opportunity of the first days of Rosh Chodesh to draw the tremendous simcha for the entire month through making good decisions to increase in matters of simcha in a way of ever increasing aponim chadoshes, a new face each and every day. So let's increase in simcha ourselves, with others, first by increasing in Pikudei Hashem Yeshara Mesamche Lev, in learning Torah, both the revealed parts of the Torah and learning Chassidus, and simply to add in simcha, a husband should be mesamech his wife, parents should be mesamech their children, and especially a father. Sometimes a father can say a strong word. He should make an effort to be mesamech the family. And through this simcha, which breaks through boundaries, and certainly the boundaries of Golus, and certainly and especially through the Noshim Tzidkonis, the righteous women of this generation, and especially through a woman at Tzidkonis who unfortunately was killed, Rachmana litzlan, in Kiddush Hashem, and may that be the last time that that should happen, and only from now on we should only have arichas yomim v'shonim tovos, lengthy and good and happy days with good health. We should go, and here's chus, we should go to immediately over to Chaim Nitzchim. Her zechus should stand for the whole of Klal Yisrael. V'heititzu v'rananu sheich ne'ofa. All those who repose in the dust should arise by Tchis HaMesim, and in place of the pain, we should have the full laughter and rejoicing of the coming of Mashiach, especially through the mitzvahs that we do, especially through the mitzvah tefillin, and especially in a generation where the name of the Rebbe is Yosef Yitzchak, additional laughter and simcha. Hashem should help that we should be all merit this, together with all the shuls in the world, which will go to Eretz HaKodesh, to Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh, and to the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi. It should happen, Teikuf, Umiyad Mamish.